I don't understand how one day you can talk about starting a family and preparing for a life together, and the next day, cheat with a lover without any remorse. It just doesn't make sense to me. My wife was an attractive, ordinary woman who, like me, first sought a stable financial foundation before thinking about starting a family so that the children could grow up in prosperity without needing anything. I've been living with this idea alongside my wife for the past few years, but I never thought she could stray and believe there would be no consequences for it. I was furious when I found out the whole truth. My name is Hassan Thompson, and I'm married to Amber. She's what you'd call quite beautiful and always dresses elegantly, though conservatively. On the other hand, I'm just an average-looking guy. Amber always styles her hair and applies makeup, even on her days off. She never appears without putting effort into her appearance. She's exceptionally organized. In my profession, I review contracts and proposals, while Amber teaches English at a high school. She drives a white Hyundai Elantra, which seems to be the unofficial car of the public school system. There's a small dent in the fender from when she accidentally hit my car, which also has a small dent. We first met in a college class during our third year. Both of us had aspirations, mine focused on getting a good job and starting a family, while hers were more about achieving success on her own merits. The summer after we graduated, we got married, and life was good. We seemed to have everything going for us. 8 years later, when I came home from work one night, Amber greeted me wearing a robe. "Would you like to join me in the bedroom?" she asked, opening her robe. How could I refuse? She took my hand and led me to our bed, and the next hour passed in a blur. For me, it was unforgettable. After we caught our breath, Amber announced, "Wait here, I've prepared dinner." She went to the kitchen and came back with pizza and a pack of beer. We ate a few bites and drank some beer. Then she asked, "Jason, do you think we could start a family?" I smiled. We had discussed the possibility before, but felt the timing wasn't right. "What were you thinking?" "Maybe November. That way, we could have the baby during the school holidays." "I think it's a great plan," I replied, hinting at celebrating some more. She got my hint. After that, we spent the rest of the night enjoying each other's company, and I had one of the best sleeps I've had in a long time. "Hey, just so you know, I have a book club meeting at 6 tonight, so dinner's in the microwave." "I'll see you around 9:30, Amber said as she headed off to school. I felt energized at work. The idea of starting a family excited me, and since Amber's parents lived nearby, I called them during my lunch break and invited them over. John and Maggie would be available to come tonight. We have some exciting news to share. Amber has a book club meeting and should be back around 9:30 p.m. After a brief pause, John responded, "Let me check with Maggie quickly." "Sure, we'll see you later tonight." I received an email that left me puzzled. "Meet at the garden at 6 p.m. Make sure to be on time." The sender was unidentified. Trying to focus on work became futile as curiosity consumed me. Unable to concentrate, I navigated through rush-hour traffic and arrived at the garden, parking in an empty spot. Just before 6 p.m., a few more cars arrived, but none of them seemed familiar. Imagine my surprise when Amber's car pulled up in front of mine. She got out, dressed in a beautiful blue outfit I'd never seen before. It was strange for her to choose this location for a meeting. As I stepped out of my car and locked it, I took a few steps forward before freezing in shock. A man from the car next to hers stepped out, and she linked arms with him, giving him a quick kiss on the cheek. My head was spinning, my legs trembling, and my stomach churning. Sweating profusely, I leaned on my car and vomited. Summoning some strength, I grabbed a golf hat, a windbreaker, and sunglasses. She had never seen me in golf attire, so I hoped she wouldn't recognize me. I hurried into the lobby, where I saw Amber in the lounge area while the man she was with was checking in. I pretended to browse a brochure stand, secretly recording with my phone. Glancing back at Amber, I felt a pang of disappointment seeing her with a 6-pack of beer and a pizza box. When they finished checking in, they headed to the elevator. I rushed to the stairs, thinking I might be able to follow them. I paused briefly on the second floor but realized they were already gone. I hurried to the third floor just in time to see them walking away. They stopped near the end of the hall, and the man swiped his key card. What a gentleman, I thought as he held the door open for Amber. I turned off my video and stood there, pondering my next move. Eventually, I decided to head back to the parking lot. A mischievous idea came to mind. I pulled out my phone and called for a tow truck. My wife's car won't start. Could you tow it to our house? They'll be there soon. Perfect, I'll be waiting. When the tow truck arrived, we exchanged a few words before they began towing Amber's car. It didn't take long, and once they left, I headed home, arriving just in time to park Amber's car myself. After tipping the guy, he left. Once the tow truck was gone, I opened the garage door, drove Amber's car inside, and parked it. Then, I brought the duffel bag inside and tossed it onto the couch. I had about 2.5 hours before Amber would return from her book club meeting. I gathered up the leaf bags and the large trash bags and headed to Amber's closet. After a few bags, her closet was empty. Then I moved on to her dresser, emptying her underwear and jewelry into more bags. The bathroom was next, where all her makeup, perfumes, and soaps were thrown into another bag. One by one, I carried the bags to the garage and stacked them in the back seat of Amber's car, which didn't have much space left. Charlie arrived and began changing the locks. He also recommended resetting the garage door opener, so now I was the only one with access. After paying Charlie, I poured myself a whiskey and drank it quickly. It was almost 9 p.m., and things were about to get messy. With a few minutes to spare, I canceled our joint credit cards, claiming they had been stolen. I retrieved the registration receipt and noticed the names Brat and Christie were listed as the owners. I would have to inform Christie about what I had found. A little after 9, my phone rang. It was Amber, her voice shaking and distressed. "Jason, my car has been stolen," she said. "Actually, Amber, I had it towed to the house. Why don't you let Chad give you a ride?" I replied and hung up. My heart was pounding, and my palms were sweaty. The doorbell rang. Who could it be at this hour? Oh no, it was John and Maggie. I had forgotten I'd invited them earlier today. This was going to get interesting. "John, Maggie, please come in. Can I offer you something to drink?" John accepted a beer, clearly nervous. It was obvious. It wasn't Chad who showed up, but a taxi that dropped Amber off. She hurried up the sidewalk and tried to use her key. When that didn't work, she rang the doorbell. I let her in. Her mascara was smeared, she had been crying. Before Amber could explain, I interrupted her. "Amber, I called your parents around noon today and told them we had an important announcement to share. Last night, Amber and I were spending time together as a married couple. She brought out pizza and beer, and we had dinner in bed. Then Amber asked me, 'Jason, do you think we could start a family? Maybe in a few months, so I could give birth between school terms.'" Maggie exclaimed, "Amber, that's fantastic." I interrupted loudly, "Wait, that's not all." Around 6 p.m., I discovered that Amber was romantically involved, not just with me, but with other men. Amber exhaled, "Jason, we need to discuss this in private. Please, let's not do this now." Ignoring her plea, I continued, "So either she's doing this for money or she's having secret affairs, making her loving husband look like a fool. And I refuse to stay married to her." Amber collapsed to her knees, sobbing. I intervened, and I have video evidence. Let's watch it. "Amber, does this outfit look familiar?" She's checking in. She's waiting. Oh, look, she has pizza and beer for him too. They're heading to the elevator. Nothing on the second floor. There they are on the third floor. He's holding the door for her. I was drawing conclusions quickly. "So, you're a woman of easy virtue," I said to Amber. "John, She interrupted, Dad, no. John pressed, so, you have lovers? Amber remained silent, sobbing intensely. Where's your wedding ring, Amber? I asked. It's at the jeweler's being cleaned, she responded. Really? Swear on your mother's grave, I challenged. Maggie stood up, crossed the room, and gave Amber a firm slap across the face. How could you? Maggie exclaimed. Amber was crying uncontrollably. I turned to John. What's the next step? I've packed all her belongings, loaded them into her car, changed the locks, and cancelled the credit cards. She's out, I declared. Amber protested, No, I don't want to leave you, Jason. I still love you. I want to have your baby. That's never going to happen. Please leave now, I said sharply. Amber insisted, I'm not leaving. John rose from his seat, walked over to Amber, grabbed her bag, and then firmly took her by the ear. Without letting go, he dragged her to her feet as she cried out in pain. He led her to the garage and ordered, Get in the car. You're not welcome here. Amber slumped into the driver's seat, resting her head on the steering wheel. John remained unfazed, knocking on the window. Go now, he demanded. She started the engine and backed out slowly. John, Maggie, and I watched from the porch as she drove away. We hugged, promising to keep in touch. They apologized for their daughter, but I assured them it wasn't necessary, everything was Amber's fault. I made sure to settle the balances on our credit cards with electronic payments, contacted HR to redirect my paycheck, and reached out to friends to find a lawyer for the divorce paperwork. Driving to Christie's place, I noticed Chad's absence. I knocked on the door and introduced myself as Jason, explaining my connection through our spouses. I showed Christie the damning video, which she watched closely. When was this recorded? She asked. Last night around 6 p.m. I confronted my wife when she returned around 9:30, and she didn't deny it. I suspect this has been going on for a while, but I don't have concrete evidence. What's your plan? Christie asked. Last night, I asked her to leave. I just left my lawyer's office, and he's preparing the divorce papers. Can you share your lawyer's contact info? She requested. Of course, let me grab a pen and paper, I offered. Amber had tried calling several times, but I ignored her, letting it go to voicemail. She sent a text, Jason, I need to access the house to get my computer and school records. Can we talk, please? I was nervous about facing her. My palms started to sweat just thinking about it. With a smirk, I replied, let's aim for 9:30 p.m. since I have a book club meeting. I spent the night at a sports bar, trying not to get too drunk. A glass of whiskey on the rocks gave me the courage to face the upcoming encounter. Arriving home around 9:30 p.m., I entered the garage and closed the door. Amber was waiting in her car, not saying a word. I opened the front door. Amber, dressed in casual sportswear with no makeup, had her hair tied up in a ponytail. Are you ready to talk? She asked quietly. I shook my head. I had no intention of giving her the chance to deliver her rehearsed speech. She wandered through the bedroom, then the guest room we used as an office, gathering some items. It took her several trips to collect everything she needed. Each time she came back inside, she asked, Are you ready to talk? Each time, I simply shook my head. Finally, Amber couldn't hold it in anymore. Jason, I love you. You're the only one I've ever loved. I've made a huge mistake. I think we can work this out. Will you give me a chance? Please. I responded, You'll never understand the impact this has had on me. My lawyer is preparing the divorce papers, and you'll be served either tomorrow or over the weekend. Tears rolled down her cheeks, and her lip quivered. Jason, I don't want a divorce. Please, we can fix this. You can ask me anything, and I promise to be honest from now on. I'll never give you a reason to doubt my love. I told her, there's only one question I have, and only I can answer it: how could I have judged you so poorly? You should go, I said, my eyes blurred with tears. Amber left, but not without pleading, please think about it. I love you and only you. One glass of whiskey wasn't enough. A few days later, while going through my emails, I came across the one that exposed the affair. I replied, thank you. I owe you more than you can imagine. You're a guardian angel. A few days later, I received an email from my mysterious benefactor. The flowers are beautiful, thank you. You're welcome, whoever you are. Days passed, and I decided to extend an invitation via email. I'd like to invite you and your partner to dinner as a small gesture of gratitude. The more time I spent in the house, the more convinced I was that I needed to sell it. There were too many painful memories. Life was a struggle, filled with emotions ranging from anger to self-pity. However, each day seemed a little brighter. I began to regain productivity at work, though I noticed people treating me like I was contagious. I suppose I was a bit irritable with those around me. About a week after I sent my email invitation to the mysterious benefactor, I received a brief reply: I've never been married. Given my recent failure at reading women's signals, I decided to sleep on how best to respond. The next morning, I arranged for more flowers to be sent to the school's faculty lounge, along with a note that said, dinner, any day, any time, any place. Are you interested? It felt like the therapeutic distraction I desperately needed, and I eagerly awaited a response. Gradually, my colleagues at work began to warm up to me again. One day during lunch, someone dared to ask, is it too soon to talk about it? Not really, I replied to the few who were listening. She was having an affair, and I've initiated divorce proceedings. I need to get back to work. Your support means a lot to me, I added as I left the lunchroom. My wait ended on Friday afternoon when I received an email from my angel that said, the flowers are beautiful. Oscars at 6:12 p.m. on Saturday. Casual dress. I had never heard of Oscars before, but a quick internet search revealed it was in a town about 40 kilometers away. Clearly, she didn't want to be seen with me. A smile played on my lips. I decided to wear my golf hat, sunglasses, and a windbreaker. I really needed this. I was so excited that I spent Saturday afternoon shopping near Oscars. I bought a dozen pink roses. A silver car pulled up, and a woman with a pink rose in her hair stepped out and went inside. I found her in the restaurant and asked, perhaps these are for you? Yes, they're beautiful. Please, join me. My name is Jason. I'm Zoe, pleased to meet you. Finally, you can take off the disguise. If we're seen here, so be it. This is supposed to be how it is. I know this is just our first meeting, but until your divorce is finalized, I don't date married men. My world has a certain order, and that's how it will stay. I'm fine with that. It's too soon for me to figure out what's going on in my head and heart. So, let's call this a research meeting, not a date. We ordered drinks, followed by dinner and dessert. Zoe seemed to be around 25 years old, about my age, with an average appearance. We had a casual conversation on various topics. After dinner, while we were having coffee, I mustered the courage to ask, how did you know? And why did you tell me? Zoe took a sip, then set her cup down and placed her hand on mine. One day, while grading papers, I saw Amber leave the teacher's bathroom with a duffel bag, dressed to impress, which was unusual for her at school. Knowing she often talked about you, I assumed you two were planning a special evening. But when I remembered she had called you during lunch, saying she was attending a book club, it didn't fit. As I mentioned before, my world works with a certain order, and this situation just didn't add up. I got stuck in traffic behind her, so I followed her to the garden around 6 p.m. that day. I saw that guy approach her in the parking lot. I avoided using my school email because, knowing Amber's organization, I assumed she would meet in the same place and at the same time. And I was right. Since I work with these people, I need to keep my identity hidden, at least for now. I never intended to hurt you. I waved my hand, sending her a silent kiss. The message stung, but I knew it wasn't the messenger's fault. Thank you, I said. I'll leave first. Thanks for the roses, I never got to take the others home, she commented as I paid the bill. Zoe added, you caught me by surprise. My heart skipped a beat when the first flowers arrived and even more with the second batch. You're quite charming. Oh, and just so you know, there were at least half a dozen women, some even married, who would have accepted your dinner invitation. Miss Zoe, I'd like to propose that we meet for dinner again, maybe in a few months. I'd love that, she replied as she left the restaurant. She was incredibly easy to talk to. On Monday, I sent pink roses to the teacher's lounge, along with a note that said, it couldn't have been better. That night, I received an email that read, you don't play fair. Things gradually started to balance out, with fewer mood swings. A couple of weeks later, I sent pink roses to the lounge again, with a message that said, please remind me of that weekend. While reviewing contracts in my apartment one evening, my phone rang from a private number. Hello, Jason. It's Zoe. Am I interrupting anything? Well, I'm just flipping through channels and can't find anything to watch, so I guess I can stop and chat with you, she laughed. It's good to hear your voice. How are you doing? I'm fine. What brings you home on a Saturday night? I thought you'd have a line of people waiting to go out with you. Still thinking that? How are things going with Amber? I haven't spoken to her since the day after she moved out. She tries to call, but I let them go to voicemail. She sends a couple of texts each day. I'm eager for the divorce to be finalized. The lawyers have reached an agreement. I guess technically you're still married, so I'm surprised to get this call. I said I don't date married men. This is just a wellness check. There's no harm in talking to a married man who's about to divorce, she said. We continued our conversation for another 20 minutes. As we said goodbye, I mentioned that I had a tough week ahead and would appreciate it if she called me next weekend. Well, I'll think about it. Good night, Zoe replied before hanging up. She's so easy to talk to. In the following conversations, I got to know her better. She shared that during her second year of college, she found out her boyfriend Jeff was cheating on her with her roommate. They had been together since high school, and when she confronted him, he dismissed it, saying, I'm a man, that doesn't affect us. She immediately broke up with him and hadn't looked for a serious relationship since. It turned out we had a lot in common. I asked her if this was what I should expect, as her defenses still seemed pretty high after all these years. After a brief silence, she replied, I don't think so. It seems like you still have a lot of love to give, and someone will convince you to try again. I had attended several social events but felt uncomfortable with the attention from those soon to be single. I just wasn't interested yet. Zoe mentioned that she had been dating, but most men stopped calling when she didn't sleep with them. After a few dates, the night before my divorce was finalized, Amber made one last attempt to contact me through a text message, Jason, please stop the divorce. I've changed. I understand what really matters, and it's you. Please, I beg you, stop this. I couldn't find the words to respond. If you can't say something nice, don't say anything at all. The next day, my divorce from Amber was finalized. That evening, I received an email from Zoe saying, now that you're single again, you can call me. I dialed the number she had provided, only for a man to answer. Hello, is Zoe available? I asked. Zoe, it's your phone, the man shouted. Hello, Zoe said. Hi. Is this a bad time? I can call back later, I responded. No, why do you ask? Zoe replied. Well, a man answered, I sighed. Oh, that's because I live at home. That was my dad, Zoe laughed. Wow, my heart sank when he answered. That's sweet, Zoe said. No, it means you care more than you're letting on. I like that, I replied. You caught me off guard, she admitted with a laugh. We agreed to have dinner the next day, which quickly became a twice-a-week routine for several months. During one of our outings, Zoe asked, "Does Amber still try to contact you?" I retrieved my phone, found the messages from Amber, and handed it to Zoe. She remained silent for several minutes, scrolling through more than 100 text messages. Amber had been using them like a journal, updating me on various aspects of her life, progress with her counseling, updates about Johnny and Maggie, and details about her colleagues. Tears filled Zoe's eyes as she commented, "Jason, I can feel her pain. She really loves you." I replied, "I'm still the Jason she fell in love with and married, but the Amber I loved and married is gone. This Amber can never take her place. I've moved on." Zoe insisted, "Why didn't you ever respond to any of these messages?" I didn't want to give her false hope that reconciliation was what I wanted, I admitted. Shortly after lunch, my phone buzzed with a text message from Zoe, "I know that I love you." About a week later, I finally made a decision and sent another dozen pink roses to the teacher's lounge. When the teachers gathered for lunch, the school secretary entered holding the bouquet. "Folks, we've got another bouquet for someone," she announced. Katie, one of the single teachers, quickly stood up and opened the attached envelope. "Oh, listen to this," she exclaimed. "Whoever these flowers are for isn't going to get married, I will. So give me his name and number." Zoe couldn't contain her excitement and stood up to claim the roses from Katie. "They're for me, thanks," Zoe declared. The room filled with murmurs of disbelief. "The Ice Princess? No way," someone whispered. "Who's the lucky guy?" someone asked. "Jason Thompson," Zoe replied. "Amber's Jason?" someone asked. "No, now he's Zoe's Jason," Katie teased. As I was eating lunch at my desk, my secretary knocked on the door and asked, "Are you busy?" "No, what's up?" I replied. Zoe burst into the room holding the roses and exclaimed, "Yes, yes, yes." But before she could run into my arms, Amber left school early that day due to illness and stayed absent for several days. She later requested a transfer to another school, and our exchanges ceased. Throughout our relationship, Zoe and I grew closer and shared many moments of affection. I was hesitant to disrupt the harmony. One Sunday, while we were cuddling and watching a movie, Zoe suddenly asked, "Do you miss being close?" "Of course, but if I dwell on it too much, it stirs up conflicting emotions," I replied. "I'm nervous, Jason. I'm afraid of disappointing you," Zoe admitted. "Don't worry at all. I'll do my best to make you happy, and I know you'll do the same for me," I reassured her. It was a wonderful night. After that, we began seeing each other more often. Experiencing intimacy with her was amazing, even though she seemed to have little experience. That worked in my favor. Thanks to her, I realized I had a bright future ahead. We had a small wedding ceremony since Zoe's parents couldn't afford much. While going through a box of wedding cards, we found a postcard from Amber that said, "I will always love you." Zoe commented, "I should send her roses for giving you to me." I shook my head. I never try to hurt anyone intentionally. After thinking about it for a moment, Zoe hugged me tightly and kissed me, saying, "You're right. I married a good man." Proudly, I now have a daughter named Z and a son named Jay. Zoe always extends an invitation, "You're welcome to join us." She still participates in the book club, but we host it at our house, eliminating the need for travel. Even after several years, I'm still busy with work. One day, we casually ran into Amber at the supermarket. Z walked beside me, holding my hand, while Zoe held Jay. "Amber, you look well. How have you been?" I asked. "Jason, Zoe, it's good to see you." "She really looks like you, Jason," Amber commented. Zoe chimed in, "I heard you got the assistant principal position. Congratulations. I bet that keeps you busy." Thank you, it keeps my mind occupied. The person before me wasn't very organized, Amber replied, holding back tears. I didn't notice any rings on her fingers, so I assumed she was still single. It struck me that we had both gotten what we wanted 12 years ago. I have a son and a daughter, and she found success on her own terms. It's ironic how things turned out. Story 2. I have been married for 6 years, and until recent events I thought that my wife and I had a great relationship. We both worked and devoted time to our careers. We had a good income for two, which allowed us to live practically without denying ourselves anything. But my rosy life ended when I accidentally got into my faithful wife's laptop and found out what I would never have known. I feel guilty for what happened. It seems to me that if it weren't for my actions, everything would be fine, but no one knows how it would really be. Enjoy watching. The beginning of the year always brought with it a sense of new beginnings and, as an inevitable consequence, the payment of taxes. This year I decided to approach the matter with particular responsibility, as the financial well-being of our small family has always been my top priority. Nicole, my wife, usually did not interfere in these matters, preferring to work on her projects. But this time, I needed her help. Nicole, I need your income and expenses for the last year to include them in our tax return, I told her one spring evening as we settled in the living room with cups of tea. She nodded, busy watching some series on her tablet, and seemed to not take my words too seriously. A few days later, when I reminded her about it again, she sighed and said she would prepare everything soon. But time passed, and there was no data from her. My anxiety about the tax payment deadlines grew with each day, yet Nicole continued to postpone this moment, which was unlike her. One day when she went out to the store for groceries, I couldn't stand it and decided to check her laptop for any financial information. I knew it was an invasion of her personal space, but my concern about the tax return deadlines outweighed this. The laptop was not locked, and notifications from some messenger were flashing on the screen. I was about to close them and start looking for spreadsheets or documents with financial data when the name of the sender caught my attention, Patrick Lane. The messages were personal, and I realized that I was facing something more than just forgotten financial reports. I could not imagine that my wife, whom I loved and trusted more than anything in the world, could behave in this way. My heart stopped, and my hands trembled as I began to read the correspondence. Patrick Lane had been pestering my wife for at least 2 weeks, writing her love letters and asking for a meeting to have sex, as it seemed to me. Nicole simply kept the conversation going with him and nothing more, always refusing to meet with him. But it infuriated me that this guy was writing to my wife. The day after the discovery, I woke up with a heavy feeling in my chest. Nicole had already gone to work, and I decided to seek more information. I turned on the computer and began searching for information about Patrick Lane. My fingers flew over the keyboard, entering queries into the search engine until I found his social media profile. Looking at his photos, I tried to see in him the person who was ready to destroy my marriage, but what I saw was just an ordinary man, perhaps even handsome, with a confident smile and eyes in which I searched for signs of malice. In one of the photos, I recognized a man who lived in the neighboring house, our neighbor whom I recognized immediately, having seen him drive his old Ford numerous times. I realized that I needed to act cautiously. If Nicole found out about my suspicions too early, she could deny everything and destroy all the evidence. I had to be sure that my wife could not be unfaithful to me. The first thing I decided was to discuss the situation with someone I trusted. Carl had been my best friend since childhood, someone who always supported me in tough times. I called him, and we agreed to meet at a bar in the evening so I could tell him everything. When I entered the bar, Carl was already waiting for me at a table in the corner, his face showing concern, indicating he felt the weight of my mood. "What happened, buddy?" he said as I sat down opposite him. I sighed and began to tell my story. The words poured out of me about Nicole's correspondence with Patrick. Carl listened attentively, nodding and understanding, and occasionally asking clarifying questions. When I finished, he was silent for a few minutes, staring into his glass. Then he looked up at me and said, "We'll find a way out. You're not alone in this. We discussed possible courses of action, from confronting Nicole directly to dealing with the neighbor who had crossed the line. But one thing was clear, I couldn't just sit back because my marriage was directly threatened. There was no actual infidelity yet, but I feared it might happen soon if this neighbor didn't calm down and stay away from my wife. Though I was confident in Nicole, something still kept me restless. Carl promised to support me regardless of my decision, but before taking the next step, I needed to think everything through carefully. The following day, I embarked on an investigation using social media and some online resources. I gathered information about Patrick. He worked in the marketing department of some company. At first glance, nothing special, a middle-aged man passionate about sports and traveling. It was obvious from him that he was the kind of man who enjoyed the attention of women and made no effort to hide it. I decided to create a fake female social media profile. I first liked his photo, and within just 10 minutes, he messaged me first, "Hi, want to get acquainted?" And from there, it began. I communicated with him under the guise of a woman, and he readily believed me. To make it more convincing, the next day while I was at work, I asked a young intern to record a voice message for Patrick saying, "I miss you already, kitty." After a few days of communication, Patrick, as I had suspected, became more open. He shared his thoughts, future plans, and he asked for some intimate photos. However, I quickly dodged the situation by writing, "Oh, we hardly know each other. How about we meet in person? What do you think?" "Damn, I like that idea. Let's meet in a couple of days at some luxurious motel. I'll let you know the exact date, okay?" I proposed from the fake profile and was wry because I could now confront Patrick. But what about my wife? Technically, she hadn't cheated on me. But what if I hadn't discovered the correspondence? I needed a better plan. I wanted to be sure whether my wife could cheat on me all this time. I was checking my wife's laptop. Patrick continued writing to her, though not as persistently. He apparently got distracted by me under the guise of a woman and lost interest in Nicole. Then a crazy yet seemingly sensible idea came to me. I wrote to Patrick from the fake profile, "Baby, do you remember our upcoming meeting? I was wondering if you have a girlfriend. I've been wanting to try something new for a long time." Patrick saw the message and didn't write anything for about 5 minutes. He was evidently shocked. "Oh, I don't know. I have one, but I'm not sure if she'd agree," he wrote, and I hoped he was referring to Nicole. I asked him to find out from her, and he wrote that he would try. About 20 minutes later, I saw my wife pause her movie watching and open her laptop. We were sitting in the living room, and I realized that she was probably communicating with Patrick. I looked at her and believed that she wouldn't make a foolish mistake. At the same time, I felt terrible about what I was doing. This cat-and-mouse game, secrecy, and deceit, all of it, was so far from the person I considered myself to be. 10 minutes later, Nicole put away her laptop and continued watching the movie. But Patrick never wrote to me. I thought my wife had rebuffed him, and we went to bed. The next morning, I checked my fake account and saw one notification from Patrick. Opening the message, I was shocked. She agreed and is interested in when the meeting will take place. Oh, that's great news. What's her name? I tried to find out the names because I couldn't believe my wife would agree to such a thing. Nicole. She's my neighbor, a nice girl. So when is it convenient for you to meet? And my worst fears came true. Nicole agreed to meet at a hotel with our neighbor and the unknown girl who I was pretending to be. How foolish. Knowing Nicole had the day off tomorrow, I wrote to Patrick that we could meet at the motel at 5 o'clock in the evening and sent him the address. He said he would check with Nicole, and 10 minutes later, I got a positive response that everything was on. Damn. I called Carl and shared the latest news. He was just as shocked as I was. He suggested catching them red-handed the next day, and I agreed. We decided to meet in the morning and wait for the evening. While I would tell Nicole that I would be at work, what intrigued me most was how Nicole would justify her trip tomorrow. Nicole came home at her usual time and started complaining about her job. Imagine, I have to go to work again tomorrow because Lori got sick. I really wanted to rest tomorrow. Oh, how unexpected. So you'll be at work all day tomorrow? Yeah, maybe even later than usual. Listening to her, I realized she was lying to me. It's a shame, of course, but I'll also be a bit late tomorrow, so no worries. Nicole had made up an alibi, which meant she was definitely going to the motel meeting. And this infuriated me. Now I understood that I had to punish not only Patrick but also Nicole. After much contemplation and preparation, the X-day had arrived. That morning, I felt odd inside, fear and excitement raged, mixing with resentment and anger. Carl picked me up exactly on time, his look conveyed support and readiness to assist in any situation. Ready? He asked as I got into the car. I nodded, though deep down, I doubted. But it was too late to back out. Upon arriving at the location, we positioned ourselves near the entrance to the motel, trying to remain inconspicuous. We sat in a cafe until the evening, discussing our plan of action. My pulse quickened when I saw Patrick driving up to the hotel. He got out of the car and looked around as if searching for someone. There's our guy, Carl whispered quietly, preparing for action. I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. After waiting a few minutes to ensure Patrick had entered his room, I took everything necessary and headed to his door. Each step seemed like an eternity. When I reached the door, my hands were shaking. I knocked, the door opened, and I saw Patrick. His face showed surprise seeing me instead of an internet girlfriend in Nicole. Hello, Patrick. We need to have a talk, I said, trying to sound confident and calm. He tried to say something, but Carl, following me in, closed the door, leaving the three of us inside. His face froze in bewilderment and fear. What does this mean? You guys shouldn't be here, Patrick said, trying to remain calm. I, feeling the inner anger and resentment rising anew, began to speak. Did you think you could play with other people's feelings and go unpunished? Did you think you could destroy my family and just walk away? My words came out firmer than I expected. Patrick stepped back, trying to understand the situation. Carl stood by the door, ensuring Patrick couldn't easily leave. Or are you trying to say you don't recognize me? Dude, I'm seeing you for the first time. Who are we even talking about? Stop playing the fool. We're talking about Nicole, I said, my tone now raised. Listen, I didn't know she was married. She didn't tell me anything about you. Patrick began to justify himself, his voice trembling with fear and confusion. Don't lie to my face, I sharply interrupted him. I've seen your correspondence. You knew who she was and what she means to me, and yet you kept writing to her and persuading her to meet. We stood face to face, and I could see him trying to find a way out of this situation. But I was determined to see this through. I had to defend my dignity and show that such actions have consequences, dude. In any case, she's not here, as you see. She's about 10 minutes late, which means she wasn't planning to come here at all, he said, like a cornered puppy. Don't you talk your way out of this. I couldn't hold back and hit him in the face. What are you doing? For what? He began to say hysterically. Oh, so you're a girl now, huh? I delivered a second blow. Dude, stop. I'm seriously not guilty of anything, Patrick pleaded seriously. Writing to married women and offering them sex is not a big deal, I said, and Patrick received a third blow. Stop. 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 I recognize you. You're that crazy. He didn't finish his sentence when another hit landed, and he fell to the floor. Weakling who can't stand by his words, I said and began to wipe my hands with a napkin. Carl started to applaud me, saying it was wonderful. When suddenly, someone knocked on the hotel room door. I opened the door and saw Nicole standing there in makeup and a short skirt. What are you doing here? No, darling, better explain what you are doing here. It was clear she was in slight confusion. She walked inside and saw Patrick lying on the floor, who had suffered from my hands. She didn't say a word and began to cry. I was trying to understand why she was crying, whether she was caught off guard or because she didn't get a call to sleep with another man. Patrick woke up and immediately ran out of the room, exclaiming, "Crazy," leaving me unsure of what to do. I hugged Nicole and realized I still loved her, but I couldn't shake off the thought that she was ready to betray me. I decided we needed to go home and talk it over. I thanked Carl for his help, and Nicole and I headed home. We had a difficult conversation where Nicole shared everything that happened. Patrick had started messaging her, and at first, she rejected him, enjoying the attention and being unavailable to him. However, at some point, Patrick distanced himself and stopped messaging her, which upset her. After a while, he messaged her again, suggesting they meet, and she couldn't refuse and fell for the deception. Listening to all this, I was at a loss. I tried to understand Nicole, but it was hard, almost impossible. How could one understand such a thing? I made a decision and tried to forgive her, but everything had fundamentally changed. Days passed, and thoughts of our conversation with Nicole still haunted me. Every word she said, every tear she shed, stayed with me like a heavy burden. Despite the pain and disappointment I felt, the need to find a way out of this labyrinth of feelings we had created for ourselves. Several weeks after our talk, we both immersed ourselves in work, trying to avoid long conversations about our future. It was a kind of silent agreement to give each other time and space to reflect. But as more time passed, it became clear that we couldn't continue living this way. One evening, as Nicole was asleep, I sat in the living room flipping through old photos. Each smile, every happy moment captured in these pictures, reminded me of how much we had gone through together. But now, looking at these photos, I realized I couldn't go back to the way things were. Too much had changed. The next day, I decided it was time to act. After work, I stopped at the park where Nicole and I used to walk at the beginning of our relationship. Sitting on a bench and watching the golden sunset, I realized that my mind had already made the decision I had been dreading. It was necessary to talk to Nicole openly and honestly like never before. When I returned home, Nicole was waiting for me with dinner. Seeing her smile, I momentarily forgot about my decision. But then I remembered the weight that had been pressing on my shoulders for so long. "Nicole, we need to talk," I began after we finished dinner. Her smile faded, and she nodded, understanding the seriousness of the moment. "I've thought a lot about us, about everything that has happened. And although this is one of the hardest decisions in my life, I feel that it's better for us to file for divorce." My words sounded firm, but inside, everything was pounding. Nicole remained silent, taking deep breaths. "I knew this day might come. I just wanted you to know. I truly regret my mistakes." Her voice trembled. "I regret it too," I replied. "I regret that we couldn't overcome this together. But I also understand that sometimes it's better to let go so both can move on." The conversation was long and difficult. We discussed the practical aspects of our future separation but spent most of the time reminiscing about the good moments we had shared together. It felt like a farewell, sad but necessary. It was extremely difficult for me to come to terms with the idea that my wife was ready to commit treason, so my trust in her was gone. She explained her act as a temporary weakness but agreed with me that this should not happen in a healthy marriage. She admitted that if I had not been in the room that day, she would have cheated on me. It all upset me, but nothing can be changed. When Nicole stood up to go to the bedroom, she turned and looked at me. In her eyes, I saw the same pain I felt. "Thank you for everything," she said quietly. After that night when Nicole and I decided on the divorce, each day seemed like a trial. We continued living under the same roof but as strangers, trying not to cross paths in the common areas of the house. It was strange and painful at the same time to see the person with whom you've shared life for many years and realize that everything that once united you is now just a memory. I began preparing the divorce papers, consulting with a lawyer who helped me understand the legal aspects of the process. Each meeting with him reminded me of the reality of my situation, that I would soon officially be a divorced man. It wasn't easy to accept despite all the hurt and disappointment I had experienced. Alongside this, I began to reevaluate my life. Dealing with infidelity and the subsequent breakup made me reflect on what truly matters to me, what values or priorities. I spent long evenings in contemplation, sometimes jotting down my thoughts in a notebook that became a sort of diary of my reassessment. One of those evenings, I realized that I didn't want bitterness and disappointment to define my outlook on life. I started looking for ways to rebuild myself, my inner world, engaging in sports, revisiting a long-forgotten hobby, reading books that had been gathering dust on the shelf. All of this helped me feel better, gave me a sense of moving forward to a new life. I also decided to refresh my social circle, meeting with friends who supported me during the tough times, attending events, and volunteering. All of this gave me a sense of belonging to life, helped me not to dwell on my problems. When the day to file for divorce arrived, I felt a strange sense of relief. Not because I was happy about the end of our marriage with Nicole, but because I understood that it was a necessary step towards a new chapter in my life. We both deserved a chance at happiness, even if that happiness now appeared to us in different forms. The divorce went smoothly. We both tried to avoid unnecessary emotions, understanding that everything said and experienced could not be changed. At our last meeting, Nicole wished me happiness. I wished her the same, despite everything. I sincerely wished her only well. Now, with everything behind me, I feel ready to start over. I don't know what tomorrow will bring, but I am sure of one thing: I can face any challenges that life throws at me, and I will find my happiness in whatever form it may come. Patrick, the cause of our unhappiness, turned out to be a coward and could not answer for his actions. I repeatedly went to his house and knocked on his door, but he did not open, and later I learned that he had moved away, which I found amusing. Looking out the window at the sunset, I realized that life goes on, and I am ready to meet it, open to new opportunities, new relationships, and new joys. After all, every end is always the beginning of something new. That's the end of the story. Your story about the challenges of divorce and the search for meaning in a new life is very emotional and honest. It's important that you openly express your feelings and make difficult decisions, striving for your own happiness and healing. This is a significant stage in your life journey, and your readiness for new opportunities and optimism about the future are inspiring. I wish you strength and confidence on this path to the next chapter of your life.